Should we wait a little more or should we start?
Is it 10 o'clock? 9? Yeah, we should go ahead. They'll come in if they. Are you recording it?
Mhm.
Okay.
So good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending this session for International Education Week. International Education Week is a week-long celebration of all things international, whether it's highlighting international students, promoting exchanges and study abroad, a food demonstration, or a dialogue with our partners abroad. We believe that internationalization can happen abroad or here at home. I'm so glad to welcome Dr. Moreno and Professor Cantu, who both lead the South Korea program, study abroad program. I personally have seen how much students love this program and hear about all of the exciting things that they do. Whether it's the DMZ, the university visit, or a BTS concert, we know students are having a great time. We encourage you to please participate and leave questions or comments in the chat. And before I get to our panelists' biographies, I want to let everyone know that at the end of the session, we will announce the winner for a box of international snacks, and you must be present to win. So to start off, Dr. Moreno is Associate Professor at San Antonio College. He has taught in the SAC Mortuary Science Department for 10 years. He is a licensed funeral director / embalmer. He holds a doctoral degree in adult professional and community education, a master's degree in counseling, and a bachelor's of arts in psychology. Professor Cantu is a professor of fine arts at San Antonio College. Professor Cantu led the Italy study abroad programs in 18 and 19. He has experience studying and traveling abroad during his master's education at Goldsmiths College of Art in London in 2000-2001, and in 2008, he traveled extensively throughout Southeast Asia. Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia, for the introduction. And we are going to share the screen so we can share the different pictures that we have about South Korea. And Professor Cantu and I are going to be alternating whenever we talk. While I get to that screen, Professor Cantu, I don't know if you have anything to say.
No, thank you everyone for joining us, and good morning to you all. Thank you for the introduction, Alicia. I'm excited to give the presentation with Dr. Moreno, and we'll be sharing different topics regarding the PowerPoint that Dr. Moreno has compiled. So I look forward to it.
Okay, I think you can see the screen now, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to be sharing several things from art to historical sites to the border of South Korea and North Korea. So, and these are some of the places that we take our students whenever we travel abroad. So, this is in a temple, in a Buddhist temple. In addition to having class, we also spend at least one night at a temple. And we want for our students to see the life of a monk in South Korea. We're always welcomed by the community, and in the morning, very early in the morning, this beautiful bell over here is going to be ringing to wake all of us up and to invite us to go and welcome the rising of the sun. So, and this happens and very early, like maybe 5 something, right before 6 o'clock, we're already sitting waiting for the sun to rise. Now, for some of us that are not morning people, this bell is just, we cannot put it in silence for a while. So, in addition, and one of the main sites that we visit, and this is based on the class that I teach, which is Psychology of Death and Dying, we normally take our students to the Korean War Museum. At the beginning, as soon as we're walking into the museum grounds, we're going to see this monument over here. This is a dome that you can actually get inside and see the art that is already in there. But you can see that them is divided in half. And on top, you're going to see two soldiers. The story goes that these two soldiers found themselves fighting in opposite sides. One of them fighting for South Korea, the other one fighting for the North Korean country. And the division represents the breaking of the family. The family was divided into two. And when they found each other, they embraced. And that's the main idea that they trying to portray to the visitors. South Korea is in hopes that one day they can hug their brothers in the other side of the border. Professor Cantu, I don't know if you have anything here.
Yes, I just wanted to say that there's a repetition of the that motif of the split world that I noticed in that particular museum. There's another sculpture that we'll see an image of. It's a wonderful photo with Dr. Moreno and his students, and they're appearing to, press these two spheres together. And that symbolizes that division between North and South Korea that they have hopes to one day unify since that provisional ceasefire in 1953. So for us, when we say post-war, a lot of times we're referring to 1945 as the post-World War II. For them, it's actually a little later. It's actually 1953. So it's a little different back there, but I just wanted to point that out. And then that sculpture, which we'll be looking at there's many forms of sculpture in that museum that we'll be talking about. Go ahead.
Thank you. This is inside that dome that I was telling you after we got through the main entrance. You're going to see art in the walls. It's pretty much everywhere in there. This is one of the first groups that went to South Korea. At the beginning, like always, it was a new program. Students were a little hesitant. Parents were a little hesitant to send their children to South Korea, knowing that on the other side of the border, we had a neighbor there that is not so friendly. But we have been going over there every year since then, and we haven't had any problems. Right as you keep on walking towards the main entrance of the museum, you're going to see this monument that shows soldiers from all ages, and from the front all the way to the back. And this is also to represent that everybody in the family was affected, from the soldiers in the front line to the agriculture people, to elderly individuals. So everybody was participating in the war when it occurred. And one of the main topics that I stopped here and I asked students, why do you think that if it's so sad, if it brings such sad memories, why do you think that they have all of these museums to remind the community of what happened? And that's precisely why they do it. So they don't want to repeat the same events. They want to conscientize the community, the family, that this war took a lot of lives of South Koreans and North Koreans for that matter, and that they don't want to repeat the event. Professor Cantu?
Yeah, on that note of not wanting to remind the younger generations and the planet, that there's still this ceasefire, in a sense it's provisional, and so it's something that is interesting about the Korean people, and they're very industrious and very competitive to rebuild. They've had to rebuild from scratch in a sense, similar to Japan, and they. And for that reason, they're like on the forefront of leading manufacturing. Everyone's heard of Samsung and LG and all of that. So it kind of motivates them. It spurs them on to really rebuild on that note in terms of all these signifying sculptures. And particularly, this is one of the largest war museums in the world as well. So.
And then finally, we make it to the front, and that's at the main entrance. And you're going to see that they are prepared to receive pretty much visitors from all over the world. That screen that you see above us is going to have the welcome sign in different language. So it's a multicultural country, very traditional in showing and wanting to show you everything about South Korea and everything that I've been going through. But at the same time, they're open to receive visitors from all over. And it's always nice to see that they include your language in there. Now, every time that you're walking around, most students interested in the program, they always ask me, do I have to learn Korean? Do I have to speak Korean before I go there? And I said, not necessarily, because every time that we go, and even if we try to speak Korean or to say a little bit in Korean, they want to practice English. They want to welcome you, and they want to show you that they know your language. So it's just like, it's very interesting to see. This is another group of students, and as you can see, the group was growing, and we were excited last year to see the registration of students interested in the South Korean program. But unfortunately, with the current pandemic situation, we were not able to conduct the study abroad program. And we have also canceled the one for 2021, but we're excited and we're already planning. We're taking this as an opportunity to prepare for 2022, and hopefully we can have a great time over there.
I just wanted to add a quick note of what Dr. Moreno mentioned about the eagerness and optimism or enthusiasm that the Koreans have, especially the youth, of engaging with foreigners. I had the privilege of studying with Korean peers at Rutgers University, and they had a nice bridge between South Korean students studying abroad over there at that university in the art field. And I still have friends to this day. And they were so eager to interact and very friendly. And once you befriend them, you're like family. I actually attended one of my peers' weddings that I'll never forget. That was a traditional Korean wedding there in New York. So it's a very warm culture. I think it's analogous to the Mexican culture in a way, very familial.
As you're walking into the main plaza, you're going to see monuments like this. There's a circle on the bottom, and then there's a monument, a standing monument. And this is in reference to the acknowledgement from South Korea, thanking all the countries that supported the war with them, that were on their side. And the United States is among those countries. And it's just interesting to see that this is like this monument that says in memory of those who took part in the Korean War. And then on the center is no longer the forgotten war. Because some individuals for a long time, they wanted to put this aside. They wanted like put it, if it's out of sight, it should be out of mind. And it cannot. There were so many people killed in action, and you can see like every country has their number, and killing action in Korea from the United States were 36,574. So Korea wanted to acknowledge all of those lives, not only by this monument, but as you walk through the museum, you're going to see walls and walls with lists of names of people from each country. So every every soldier that died during this war has been acknowledged, and their name is all over the museum. And I will kind of show you more about those names. This is a famous piece of art. It's huge. It's hanging from the roof. It's in a dark room. And the only light that they have in there is to kind of emphasize this piece of art. this represents a tear. And it's composed of dog tags with names of soldiers that died during the war. And as you sit there in that dark room, the floor immediately illuminates, and then you're going to see the video that is projected in the surrounding walls and also on the floor. And you can see the drops, like when a drop hits the rest of the water, but these are kind of representing tears from everybody. And on the floor, the wall, and everything else, the names of those who die will appear. So it's a very emotional scene to witness. And being that I teach that class, the Death and Dying, I bring students here so they can see how South Koreans are doing this to remember first those individuals that died. I always say that whenever you die, it's not that the relationship ended. It just gets transformed into something else. And that something else we determine as individuals who have lost a family member or somebody in war. Professor Kenty?
Yes, on that particular sculpture, you know, we'll be talking about all the formal elements of design. I mean, you can't really have anything better than studying abroad, in my opinion, in terms of, let's say, having breakfast, discussing the agenda, lecturing about certain principles of art, and then literally going and experiencing some of these elements in person. And this particular piece is really rich on many levels in terms of sculpture. It's an assemblage sculpture. As Dr. Moreno said, it's comprised of all the military dog tags. Something that the Korean people, it's kind of also in their nature, that industriousness. They are really, they have an ambition of transforming materials in terms of contemporary art, which is really evident in a lot of contemporary Korean artists at the moment. And so they're really creating new forms that are really reconsidering materials in innovative ways. And it kind of reflects their technology and how innovative they are with technologies. So it's a really powerful piece. I'm not going to reiterate some of the emotional aspects of it, but the fact that it's multimedia, it's not only this particular sculpture, you're dealing with a video that actually relates to it. And there's many other museums and galleries in Seoul that offer modern and contemporary art that is cutting edge, like the Samsung Museum. There's a digital museum, and we'll be seeing some other images that I'll be making note of for you all, but really fascinating new forms that they're creating. Thank you.
In addition to the dog tags, you notice that there is that wire surrounding that tear. That's just to represent these wires that you're going to see next. You can see those wires at the top of the fence. And this is the Korean demilitarized zone, also known as the DMZ. And this is a strip of land that is dividing the peninsula of Korea. So it divides not necessarily in half, but we have two zones. Now it's going to be South Korea and North Korea. And this little pieces of ribbons that you see here, those are tagged to the fence that divides the peninsula in two. The reason for that is because here, since we're close to Mexico, some of us have family members on that side, and we can go and visit, and then we come back. We can even call them via Zoom or utilizing other media to get in touch with them. Video, internet, messages, text, you name it. We can communicate back and forth. That's the advantage that we have. On their case, they don't have that opportunity to keep in contact with family members who might be on the other side of the fence. And this is their only way that they have to express their emotions, to express grief, to express hope for those family members that they have not been in contact with since they divided the country. And this has been for over 50 years. So imagine not knowing if your family member is dead or alive. So it really doesn't matter. And the grief is experienced with this fence over here because you don't know if the death has occurred or not. It's just hopes that your loved one at one point will be able to see this love messages, these prayers, these wishes, however you want to consider them. They don't necessarily have to be religious, but these are hopes that they have. Professor Cantu, I know you have something on this. Mhm.
Yeah, that was, I mean, it's, you're looking at such a powerful installation. You know, the only analogy I would have would be something that we've seen on the Berlin Wall, you know, the division of West and East Berlin at the time. You had all of this colorful graffiti, which was different in a sense, but they would be messages and imagery and emotional imagery that was spray painted and painted all over this huge wall. At the time, obviously, it was celebrated and destroyed and fragmented by the people once that was released or once it was once they unified. But with this, as Dr. Moreno said, this is comprised of, you're looking at an installation that is really powerful. It's made up from the people, right? And it's all in hope. It's all a sense of faith of someone that you really do not know. I mean, it's just really powerful. As colorful as it is, it's so heavy, right? And it's so light in that there are these little ribbons, but yet it's, you know, such a heavy emotional piece to see. So it's really interesting to see the again, back to materials and uses, although this is something that is very purposeful from the community, from the people there. But I just wanted to kind of point out some of the formal elements of sculpture and the scale, the sheer scale of it, which is huge.
Thank you. Now, this is the as far as we can get to the area of North Korea. There are some tunnels there that they have, and they allow us to go in. But some of the students like to go, some don't, and I normally don't recommend that because it's a long walk, and especially for if you're claustrophobic or if you have problems with asthma, that's not the place to go as far as the tunnels is concerned. Some areas are super sad, like this one. Some others, as you can see, we're having fun right there at the sign that it divides. But to get here, we need to register ahead of time. We need to have our passport ready all the time. And it's every time that we plan something like this visit could be subject to cancellation at any point in time. So we could go driving towards the area, and if they say that it's not appropriate to visit on that day, they will close it and we won't go. So, but you can always visit at a different time. So this is the welcome sign that they have as soon as we arrive. Okay. This is the building that they have. Behind this building, we're going to have it's like a platform where you can go in and see the next city. You can actually see a city in North Korea. The saddest part is that it looks, even though it looks super nice, it looks with tall buildings, it looks like clean area, and you will look at it and you're going to see, well, there's really not a difference between South Korea architecture and North Korean. Whenever you see that city, you are impressed. It's just like looking at the skyline of Houston, or it's just buildings all over the place. But we have been informed that that is a ghost city. By that, I mean there are buildings in there, there are work in there, cleaning the city, and you can see them moving from place to place, but nobody lives there. The buildings are empty. It's just like a image to portray to the world. They know that we're going to be looking, so they want to present the nicest part of the country, but that's not necessarily what that is. But this is kind of the division between the two.
Such a strange way of making a sense that we're talking about sculpture, but that whole facade of a city, in a sense, is created to portray something that's not really true. It's a facade and a shell. You wonder, it's a military tactic of using an entire city as an installation, as a prop, a decoy, which is fascinating to think about. But very strange.
And as you can see on the South Korean side, you always see signs of hope. One of them is this one right here. It says end of separation, beginning of unification. And this is the theme that you're going to see in this zone right now. They have a subway station, and these are students that from the last time that we went. South Korea has a subway station ready to operate. They have everything. They have the trains, they have the building, they have everything. Just like if they open today, as soon as they open the border, they have the trains ready to go from one side to the other side. But this has been ready to go, but for several years. I think it's been like 7 to 10 years that it's been open, and they keep on waiting. And this is what I tell my students. This is the best signs of hope, faith, if you are religious, that I have never seen in another country, that you build in hopes. There's not even plan to open right now, but there's faith, there hope to connect two countries. It's just like we're waiting for Canada to open or Mexico to open, and we really don't have time frame, but there's hope that one day the two countries will become one again. The image that of the sculptor that Professor Cantu was referring to is right there. This is, you can see the word is divided in two halves. That the one on the left has South Korea, the one on the right has North Korea. And the purpose of that is for you to go in and do exactly what we're doing. Push the two halves in hopes that one day they will become one. Professor Cantu?
Oh, no, I think it's great that we finally landed on this one. I wasn't sure of the site of where it was, but I recall seeing it with you, Dr. Moreno, and I just wanted to point that out. But it's a huge scale, interesting motif, as we said, that's repeated. I'm wondering if there are more sites like that, Dr. Moreno, where you've seen that image of the two halves. But it's a puzzle piece that we hope will be unified, right, together.
Yes, this is pretty much like you can actually get it as a keepsake also, and they do have it in other places. We will go to a street also that sells keepsakes and all kinds of traditional items from South Korea, but this is the one that is at the actual size of the monument. So, and every time that we go, I take the students, and whenever they see us doing exactly what they were hoping, you see the South Koreans, taking photos of us doing that, or volunteering to take photos for us. So it's just a good experience, and the students walk out of that with that same hope, realizing that some families have been divided, and that we need to do something. This is the street that is very famous in South Korea. It shows modern galleries. but at the same time, it shows traditional sites where you can go and learn from history of the country to places where they have a kimchi museum. And with time, if you wanted to, you can go in on one day and they can teach you step by step how to create the kimchi based on the recipes that they have. They give you all the materials, they give you everything. You just need to be there. And if you arrive in time when they're teaching that class, they can give you that. Otherwise, they show you the development of something as traditional as kimchi. You can go and get keepsakes if you're thinking about bringing something to your family members, friends. Some keepsake, you can always go there and get more information and more items for them. At the same time, you can stop tea shops. You're going to be surprised that here we have some places that are friendly with our pets and allow us to bring our pets to the cafe. Over there, that's kind of the standard. You have tea shops that are designed like for you to bring your cat, for you to bring your dog, for you to bring other types of pets that you might have. Or you don't have a pet, but you want to see maybe the raccoons. You go into a tea shop that has raccoons. And it's interesting to see that type of site.
I just find that so amusing. That would be great, right? Have a little tea and then pet like a little, little critter. I was just going to point out some of those things that are in the photo there that Dr. Moreno presented, the wonderful artwork. There's a lot of little galleries and stores. That's a real famous street. That particular shot photo has these banners that are pretty traditional. The Koreans were well known for elaborators of certain customs that pre-existed, like say Buddhist ink paintings that were coming in from China. But one thing that's unique about Korea is they also expanded upon some of these styles. So you can actually see some of those, even though they're smaller versions, posters or souvenirs, but the tradition of working on things like ink on paper or ink on silks, some of those silk textiles were the largest for some of these banners. So they kind of innovated and expanded upon some of these pre-existing styles of Buddhist painting. And so you can actually see some of that in the little market photo. So they're real well known for silks. I'm sure that we're going to stumble upon, beautiful embroidered items. They're known for embroidery. You'll see certain motifs of links that are interlinked with their embroidery. And those actually have a lot of signification to ward off evil, for example. And you'll see that reflected in the architecture that's ancient, like some of the ancient palaces and older traditional historic homes, which we'll be looking at. So you'll see that in the artwork as well. And interesting symbolism like clouds or links, they mean certain things in their culture. But I'll pass the mic back to Dr. Moreno.
Everything is beautiful there. The only inconvenience that I will always bring up for our students is that we're going to be walking and walking and then walking a little more. Those of you that count your steps, we're going to be in the average of 15 to 20,000 steps per day. And the reason is because we use public transportation. Some students have asked me, but why you don't rent a car or a minibus? It's like, it's not the same. If I take you all the way from the United States to visit a country like South Korea, it is good for us to get together with people. And when I say get together, I mean it. It's like, you can see that during the daytime, like when it's not a rush hour. And that's one of the reasons that we don't leave the place where we stay until probably, I would say 10 o'clock. We do have class from 8 to 10 every day. And we kind of visit. Sometimes we skip class at the hotel to get yourself ready. but we will have class throughout the city. So we go and we might have class immediately out of the subway and in the subway station, in one of the museums, at the restaurant, at a park. But I also want for you to see that whenever we go, when it's not rush hour, we can actually sit and be like comfortable, as you can see on the picture. But when we try to go back, it's really, really packed, and you can see that on the other picture. Then that same street there in Sadong, you're going to see shops, modern shops. They have art. They can actually paint, literally paint your face, and if you're willing to sit there for about an hour or so. It might seem like a long time because you're sitting there kind of just waiting for them to paint you. You might get tired, but the piece of art that they create is really nice. Others might just want to go shop, and you can just go all over, just going up, up, up. And everything is in a ramp way. So people that might want to go up or down in a wheelchair, they can do that very comfortably. You're going to see that here, this place is also, you can see art, as Professor Cantu pointed out. This is a place for people, and they pretty much develop everything. And you're going to see that they have their own art at the walls. And I will let Professor Cantu say something about here. As you can see, we can see like, wow, why are they doing all of this? But this is art. You can see from love messages to very sad message. And I tell my students, look for some of those messages that impact you. And one of the messages that the students brought to me one time is like, Mom, can I go back home? I was like, wow. So they're just all kinds of messages, love too. So Professor Cantu.
Yes, I was just going to say there's a couple of sites like that Dr. Moreno mentioned in terms of like that are kind of endearing message boards for the community. One of which I think we'll see a photo of soon that has padlocks that Dr. Moreno was pointing out that kind of represent maybe two newlyweds or a boyfriend and girlfriend that are celebrating their relationship together, and they would lock the padlock on a particular site. With this one, you're looking at a message board of all these drawings and messages. So it's definitely a very cheerful kind of site, that's designated for people to definitely enjoy, sgraffito and graffiti, go ahead and write here. And it's interesting to see, especially after traveling to Italy with some of the SAC students, and for them to be astonished how old graffiti is, that it actually exists even in ancient Rome. So graffiti is just a human tendency to be a little bit mischievous and like put your little message in there, And so here we have a designated space. It's like, hey, someone loves someone else.
Yeah. Some of the students that went with me the first time, and now when they hear that I'm going again with a different group, it's like, can you please take a photo of what I wrote on the wall? Now, they want to see if it's still there. And most of the time it does.
It's funny.
During that street, you're also going to see traditional dances, traditional music, and you're going to see people dancing from very traditional to the famous K-pop. And students that want to go to Korea because of K-pop, and they enjoy this site. And this is a popular site that they come back every time that they have a free day to do whatever they think is appropriate, and they normally come to this site because it has pretty much everything there. There are also museums in there in which you become part of the art. So you can get in and you can, it's like a 3D type of art. there are rooms and all kinds of things that they can just go in there and be part of the piece of art.
This is a very unique museum that Jose is showing us these wonderful photos. He was a brave soul inserting himself, becoming the art, right? It's an interactive museum. This is called a Museum of Illusion. And so it is unique in that all of the artists who have made these installations or sculptures, what they had in mind as their driving force or concept was to create an installation that ultimately would have the insertion of a friend or someone in there that would then be captured through photography. So you're seeing this wonderful collapse of space, you know, ultimately what is spatial becomes, you know, a picture, and or vice versa. So there's this interesting illusions going on with objects, spaces, you know, perspectives that might be altered. From what I've heard, there's a lot of interesting rooms to explore there. So you're seeing a sample that Dr. Moreno is showing us.
And this is fun. And I remember this last day, the personnel from the museum really had to ask us to leave because we spent hours and hours and hours just taking photos. So they were like, we're closing. In fact, we've been closed. So
Excuse us, please leave. That was too much fun.
yeah, so this is good and we combine, as you can see, I teach the death and dying class, but whenever I teach with another faculty member, we're trying to incorporate something else. Like in this case, we're also incorporating art. So it's not just that we're going to be sad the entire semester. We're going to be doing fun stuff to get over or grief. And these are the logs that Professor Cantu was referring to. The idea here is for you to go all the way to the top of the tower and put a log there with your significant other. And the idea is that once that log is like that, nobody is going to be able to separate you. At the beginning, they were bringing logs with key, and the tradition was for you to throw down the key until they discovered that key at a speed that it was coming, because the tower is taller than the one that we have here in San Antonio, the Tower of the Americas. So it was really like a bullet coming down, and it was hurting people. So now they still continue with the same tradition, but they sell the logs without the key already. So whenever you go, you write your message and then you lock it. And you might go there and you don't have a lock. And like in the case that you see there, you don't have a lock and you don't have a boyfriend. So kind of a reminder there, come with boyfriend next time. So that way you can see the idea here. But it's important to see thousands of logs. It's all over. That tower is, walls are covered with logs.
It's amazing to imagine how much weight is there, Dr. Moreno, in terms of all the locks. You know, what I'm thinking when I see this is that sense of connection and unification, you know, referencing back this division that they've suffered from, right, that is resonating in their culture. And now there's this celebration again of unity and really never being torn apart, you know, in any way. So, or never unlocked, right?
Yeah. And as we keep on walking, we're going to see art everywhere. This is the wall designated for children. The children work on the piece of art at school, and then they give the little pieces of tile and they create these walls as you're walking through parks or you're walking through the subway station. And you're going to see that art is everywhere. And they do this on purpose, kind of just to promote participation from the community, from people that actually use these places. Maybe they're too busy to go to an actual museum, but they go to work every day and they go through the park, they go through the subway stations, and they're going to see pieces of art everywhere. This is a community art, pretty much.
That's wonderful. And there's a sense of permanence too, right? So this is
Yes.
a part of the community. And I like what you said about the fact that some people may not have the privilege to always, go and step foot in a museum or gallery, but here it is day to day, on your way to work and you're commuting and you see, maybe your child's tile that it cheers you up or something. It's wonderful.
Whenever we go also there, and I mentioned that there are some sites that you can see the traditional music, the traditional dances and art, and we can go and see and be witness that. But I also want our students to be part of the idea. And whenever we go, I take you to see a show, and this show, you become part of the music. They bring you from your seat, they go and bring you up to the stage, and you participate with whoever is performing. And then at the end, those that perform will normally get the opportunity to take a picture with the artist. In this case, when I called, I mentioned that I was bringing a group of students. So they sat us in an exclusive area, and they kind of right in the front, and they took us all to the stage, and we try to dance, at least I did, but other students were so into it that they became part of the show, and people actually were paying to see us dance, and I can believe that they did that to me, but I was part of the show as well.
That's where I'll discreetly step aside because I would be a penguin on ice. So I'll let you all do the dancing. I'll save you the embarrassment to know me.
Right. We also go and share meals. It's very important for the Koreans to share a meal with you. And as you can see, it's not just one dish for you. This is something for everybody. It's a community meal, and we have all kinds of things. So if we're allergic to something, we need to say that from the beginning so they can bring us something that is not going to affect our health.
I was just, before you change that image, Dr. Moreno, it was interesting. We were talking about foods and just a little fact that I came across in terms of some of the traditional foods. Their notion of what they would display to eat was very colorful, but it wasn't necessarily a way of being regal towards the royal class. It was actually a philosophy of color in foods. So different colors, rather, of the foods would signify a certain medicinal property for particular organs of your body. And I found that to be really fascinating. So there's a dish right there in that image, right by the top hand, that has a chopstick, and it's that little cauldron, that little pot, that iron cast pot. It's bibimbap, which is a traditional dish that's Korean, and it's
Yes,
very
sir.
colorful, and you'll see all of the different colors. They often have 5 colors. I just thought it was fascinating to come across. We could be eating our color theory, you all.